Hi, I'm Steve Robinson, and thanks for joining us here today on the iLife podcast. Our concept here is really to have conversation with industry leaders about carrier and distribution connectivity. Today we have Jim Kerley with us. Jim has a very varied background that we're going to have him share with you, but really from a carrier, from technology, from startup, from working with organizations like LIMRA and today in consulting. So we're going to have a great conversation about his background and a recent paper that he's put together. We also have Nelson Lee, who's the CEO of our organization.
Well, I really appreciate the invitation to join both of you today. And first, congratulations on the success that you're having, not only in building a company, but addressing the issues of the industry and advancing those transformation issues that you're doing so well. So congratulations.
Thank you.
My background, as you say, Steve, has been over a long period of time. I worked for an insurance company in Boston for many years, then had an opportunity to start a marketing communications firm.
Nice.
Grew that very successfully with 3 other partners. I had an opportunity to work for a startup company back in the early 2000s.
Startups before they were
Wow.
cool.
Startups before they were cool. And then I had a great opportunity to morph based on many people's advice to open a consulting practice called Clearview Partners. Did that for about 8 years.
Nice.
Had some real fun doing that with carriers. And then along came LIMRA, and I was asked to become president of LIMRA Services and ultimately became the chief membership officer at LIMRA. Spent almost 13 years there, traveling around the globe, working with, consulting with, advising CEOs of insurance carriers, their executive teams from literally all parts of the world. It's a great opportunity to understand from a global perspective the trends in distribution and marketing. Subjects I know are dear to your heart.
Absolutely.
So that's my quick story, and I'm sticking with it. And now I'm back to Clearview Partners, doing some great work with a pure select group of companies that I like working with.
Jim, thank you for being here. And we know you recently just published a very informative, in-depth, and exciting paper on the relationship between shifting mindsets of distribution and carrier relationships. So tell us at a high level, what is that paper all about?
Well, I wrote the paper because I belong to a study group. LIMRA's, one of LIMRA's oldest study groups, started in 1931, believe it or not. It's called the Research Agency Group. And it's made up of field leaders that run retail insurance organizations, now financial services organizations. And we meet twice a year. It's a very serious group, and about every 4 years, each of us has to do a legitimate research paper. And
Good homework.
it's big homework. It took about, 100 hours to write. So it's really, I was very pleased with the reaction that I got. The topic around this paper, we called it Shifting Distribution, Changing Mindsets. Why aren't advisors talking to customers more about life insurance?
Great question.
So the thesis was there's a supply side, perhaps a supply side issue or a demand side issue. There's not a supply side issue. LIMRA will tell you 102 million Americans either don't have enough insurance or they need insurance. LIMRA will tell you that consumers, more than 35% of them have financial advisors. Another 28% are looking for advisors. They want advice. So the question is not on what the consumers want. They need advice. They know they need insurance. They need, as always, the impetus to make the decision to go with the right choice. And so it comes down on the shoulders of carriers, distributors, and advisors. And in the paper, I evaluated purely why advisors aren't selling more life insurance. And then I looked at independent broker-dealers,
Right.
and tried to discern what the issues were. And in the broadest sense, what we came to conclude is that more and more advisors from whatever channel are shifting to be wealth advisors. Now, that's pretty obvious if you're working for a Merrill Lynch or you're a wealth advisor. It's not so obvious if you're a career agent that in theory is supposed to be selling life insurance as the primary goal. And many of them are. I don't mean to discount that for a minute. But, as you mature in your career, clients get older, they get wealthier. They have financial needs that you can offer through planning and advice and investment products. So the natural tendency is to move away from life insurance.
Right.
And what we concluded
You're
from
following your clients.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, Steve. And so
As you should.
Right.
yes, yes. And so the result is that advisors are focusing more on wealth, less on insurance.
Right.
Insurance products are not getting easier, they're getting far more complex. And, it's easy to get rusty, or it's easier to go with a sale of an investment product, which is a lot more fun and easier than talking to clients about death and why life insurance should fit. So that was one piece of the paper. Then I covered the career agency channel, the life brokerage channel, and the independent broker-dealer channel, and what's going on, what's going on there, channel by channel,
Right.
around, is there a mindset shift that we need to make? Is there a way that we can develop better ways to enhance and motivate from the top down the sale of life insurance as a critical foundation for a financial plan? It all begins with a life insurance foundation. And it's just, that's the fact. And if you don't have time, if you run out of time and you don't have a financial plan, including life insurance, you leave a lot of problems behind.
One thing that really resonated with me in your paper, I was talking about the propensity for someone that has a financial plan to buy life insurance versus someone that doesn't. And it just, for me, whether you work with your advisor, which I hope they are, or they do something on their own, but to have a financial plan mapped out is really critical. And you allocate money for retirement and for kids' college and, whatever your plans are. But what's the key thing that protects all of that plan? Insurance. And if you don't have insurance, your plan's not complete.
You're absolutely right. And you've seen it from your background.
Right.
I interviewed my financial advisor, and he told me a story.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, well, I was. He liked it. I liked it. Anyway, that was the background of the paper.
So, Jim, on that note, I have a couple of questions. You brought up a few interesting points in that you interviewed your financial advisor, and you also mentioned that life insurance products have not gotten simpler for the most part. There are simplified issue products, but for the most part, they're not getting simpler. So I want to talk about the two in one lens, in that for someone who is a financial advisor, as opposed to, let's just call it, purebred insurance agent, knowing that insurance products have gotten more complex, has the process of selling insurance also got more complex? Is it about the same, or is it easier than ever for a non-insurance agent to sell insurance?
Well,
To apply, to get a quote?
I would say certainly the efforts of companies like yours are making great strides at streamlining the process of submitting an application, following through underwriting, status quotes and all of that. I think that the industry, thanks to companies like yours, are making significant progress in streamlining the process. The disconnect is that at the point of sale retail level, an advisor who's primarily selling wealth isn't making the connection between that. So in my particular case,
The connection is a mindset connection or a experience, or both?
it's probably both.
Okay.
It's probably both. And even the gentleman that I was talking about, my advisor, when he was a very seasoned life insurance agent. That's how he started in the business and moved into more of a financial advisor. When he has an opportunity to offer life insurance, he sends all the details over to the insurance desk in his firm, and they work out all the quotes. And when they decide to make the purchase, that department manages all the connections. So that team of insurance experts would know exactly how to manage
Right.
the processing piece of it. But the point that he would make to you is, most advisors don't want to get involved because they don't want to upset potentially any of their client relationships. God forbid somebody could get raided or turned down. You can drop a ticket in a day and you can deliver an insurance policy in, well, depending on who you go with,
Right.
hours or days or weeks. So that's a complication. But I think most importantly, for many advisors, it's a mindset shift that we need to bring it back into view. I say to people, life insurance has a product placement problem. If you go into a grocery store, the end caps are to highlight a product. Mm-hmm. That's product placement.
Right.
Life insurance in a wealth management portfolio,
on
it's way down in aisle 7, down on the bottom.
In fact,
it's
you
like
just
the
mentioned
healthy cereals on the bottom of the shelf.
Exactly.
The sugar cereals are right where the kids'
That's
eyes
exactly
are.
right.
In fact, you mentioned that it's not only not in the focal point, it's almost kind of the opposite, where you mentioned that they don't want to upset a customer.
That's right.
But if they're supposedly providing value to an important financial foundation, what might potentially upset the customer? Is it the poor experience? Is it the notion of talking about life insurance or death? Let's go a little bit deeper on why is it upsetting to give advice?
I'll jump in.
Go ahead,
because I saw your eye. For me, it's the jeopardizing that relationship because of the potential outcome. If they're rated higher than quoted or anything goes wrong, they feel that's going to jeopardize what they consider their primary business of investment or whatever their primary sale is.
Well, I think that's right. And I think it's not the client that's the problem. It's the advisor.
Exactly
the advisor is
and it's not
afraid
that
of playing that game.
It's just a different focus.
Right.
Yeah.
And so part of it's in the setup. One of the people I interviewed is a senior vice president, executive vice president of an insurance company, runs the life insurance division of this particular company. And he said, you know what? If you go to buy a car, or if you go to buy a mortgage, you got to fill out a lot of paperwork, and it's a lot of pain. We're insuring the economic value of a human being. You think it might take a little bit of more experience than to drop a ticket?
Yeah.
He's right. And so I think part of it is preparing the client for what's ahead. We know that from LIMRA statistics, people want to buy, they know they need to buy life insurance. What a better spot than in a conversation with a financial advisor to talk about it. It's the safest place that I can think of to have that conversation. If you go to the doctor and the doctor knows he probably should check one more x-ray, but he's a little bit hesitant because if he checks the x-ray, he's not an expert in that particular area, he might get embarrassed and the client's going to leave.
I need a new doctor.
That's bad practice. I don't care. That's kind of malpractice.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting phenomenon. And so when I think about then in the conclusion of the paper, for me, is we need to help create an insurance, we need to redefine, re-energize an insurance mindset from top to bottom.
Yeah, I love it.
So we mentioned that there are the reasons that a customer might potentially be upset is because of the potential outcomes. Is it plausible that if we made it easier for advisors and consumers to get access to more information and options in real time, they would not be as likely to get upset if just even a quote or an underwriting outcome came back less than whatever was originally applied?
I think you're absolutely right. Education and open communication are two key components of customer satisfaction, at least within the life insurance realm. And look, let's face it, when the predominant sales channel was the career agency channel, you bought the product that agent recommended because that's the product the agent sold.
Right.
Today, even in career agency channel that's left, they offer you multiple products. And so the ability to quote and compare and contrast and to offer options in terms of product styles and product types and by different carriers, that should be a natural part of the business. It is a natural part of the business. But
is it easy to do that today?
In the mind of the advisor, probably not. I suspect that thanks to technologies like yours, it's easy to do. It's a lot easier than it was in the past. And helping advisors to have those conversations by using technology and turning that technology into consumer-based conversations, in my mind, would be the key.
Yes, in a
Right.
B2B to B2C enablement model.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
also, you said it earlier, I think it's real important, it's setting the right expectation.
Right.
I mean, with the consumer, if they know here's the 5 steps that are going to happen, then they're prepared and they know what's going on. If they're caught by off guard, oh, I need an exam too, I didn't know about that. Right. Or I didn't realize this was going to take 60 days. I've lost interest, I moved on. It's all about the advisor setting the right expectations, which they have so much ability to do, and they do a great job of that. The consumer doesn't always hear them, but that's a critical step, I think.
You mentioned an important part, though, Steve, taking, say, 60 days. I've heard different numbers, say 30, 60, 90, 120 days, but let's just call it some long amount of time.
Yeah.
It's true. I think we should absolutely have people set expectations. But at the same time, most of the time, outside of extraordinary circumstances, the application and underwriting of a life insurance product doesn't quite literally take 8 hours a day, every day for 60 days.
Right.
No.
Generally, people are waiting for information.
Hurry up and wait.
We are not literally like waiting and underwriting stuff for 8 hours a
That's
day.
correct. That's correct.
So I have a feeling that though we can set expectations, that wait period could be more efficiently utilized. And I think of one important thing Jim mentioned, the insurance desk.
Mm-hmm.
Every large wealth management has an insurance desk of some kind, right? Just like banks have a trading desk.
Sure.
And you have done so much in-depth research into how they sell. So I wonder, Jim, today, when an advisor like yours, they work for, let's just say, XYZ wealth management company. They say, Jim, would you want to consider these insurance products? Jim says, sure. I'll take a look at these 3 from this company. I'm interested. They throw it over to the insurance desk. And you probably already have an account with your advisor, right? At xyzwealthmanagement.com. Right. What happens at the insurance desk? Do they quite literally just give you an option on your xyzwealth.com that shows up, or is it a separate experience? Is it disparate? Is it unified? What goes on in the mystified insurance desk? I think this is really important because not a lot of people actually see what the insurance desk does.
Yeah, I think most of the time what the insurance desks in wealth management, but and also within brokerage general agencies, they evaluate the case. They evaluate the carrier that would best potentially suit the case, and they submit 2 or 3 preliminary applications.
Is this in a centralized manner on xyzwealth.com separately?
I don't know that it's on .com. I think it's probably coordinated through
separate applications,
separate processing. Yeah, and now. I know there are technologies that you offer, for example, that simplify that kind of process. And that's making it potentially really easy to do, far more or less complicated than it was in the past. And then presenting the information back to the advisor in a way that the advisor can explain the best options. Now, the other thing we have to consider is, life insurance needs, we have to segment by sort of the consumers. So if I'm talking to the young family that's got $100,000 to invest, and they need they need basic life insurance packages, that's a lot simpler sale, than it is to suggesting to someone who has a $40 million estate that life insurance is a really cool way to build life insurance strategies into your estate plan, generation skipping or whatever it is. That's more complicated. One's building
an estate, one's protecting an estate.
Right. And you can so it's not just as easy as a one size fits all. But the fundamental question is, even for call it the bread and butter sale, if you will, the good size accounts that many advisors deal with day in and day out, there is a strong insurance need. Right. The wealthier clients probably already have life insurance. Then the question is, how do we creatively use life insurance in a sophisticated planning way as an asset class, if you will, to leverage whatever plan that the advisor might have, and that's a whole different story. Exactly.
Both valuable.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you mentioned that it's an asset class, and wealth managers are in the business of asset management. And when you log into xyzwealth.com, which is the firm that your advisor works at, you see your asset allocation, right? Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, all that, right? But typically in that view, you don't see a very important asset class, and that is life insurance or even annuities. So in that mindset, I wonder if it would be easier for advisors to discuss life insurance as a viable option or supplement to the plan if everything was in one view. And I say this because of the advent of a type of technology we've come to become familiar with in our everyday lives without realizing what it is. It's called a headless interface, a technology that has no interface. We always talk about interface like a UI is really good to use.
Right.
But what about something with no UI? It can operate anywhere. And the example of that in other industries would be credit card processing, like Stripe. When we go and buy something on an e-commerce website, you've been in the .com era, so you know e-commerce was all the rage back
Yes.
then. But back then, you would very often need to be redirected into some sort of payment gateway. Nowadays, you can just buy on the website. Stripe processes the majority of that, but you never literally go to stripe.com. You don't even know Stripe is there, most likely, right? And it's what powers things like Walmart, McDonald's. So headless technology is very much a part of our everyday lives. We just don't really think of it as headless. What if wealth management and insurance were blended in a headless way where your advisor talks to you and you let him know, I'm interested, here's my parameter, my requirements, I'd like to see these three types of products. Instead of waiting days and weeks from the insurance desk puts your tailored recommendation and it just appears on your xyzwealth.com portal. Do you think that would be something that is material?
Well, I think many advisors could use it in a very positive way to explain how the insurance asset, quote unquote, could help and would participate in the total plan and also illustrate the values.
Right. Because it's not supposed to be just standalone of vacuum.
Right. No, when I get my annual statement or quarterly statements from my insurance advisor, he's using some technology somewhere. I don't know. I can't remember exactly, what firm he's affiliated with right at the moment. But, they're generating these reports for him. And, included in my statement is the death benefits of my life insurance and the cash values of my life insurance. And the cash values are shown as part of the sum of the total assets that I have. So I know right there. But I think I'm sure there are technologies that are not being used today that could dramatically change the way advisors can speak to clients and the way that clients can see illustrated the potential growth. Mm-hmm. So if I'm an investment advisor and I'm thinking about how your plan can grow over time, and I'm making some, forecasts of growth based on whatever risk assessments you're making.
Do that in your native wealth management interface.
Sure. Yeah. Why shouldn't you do it that way?
As opposed to going to carrier1.com, carrier2.com,
absolutely.
Carrier3.com.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You would be asleep by the time you logged into carrier3.com and forgot your password for carrier1.
And take out that information and have it update and populate your financial plan that your advisors put together. So you know the values of each one of those accounts on any given day.
Right. And that would make it easier for the advisor to have a legitimate conversation with his or her client about what's going on with the total plan and with that critical foundation piece.
Right.
No question about it.
Obviously, very biased because, I run a connectivity company, but I've always had the belief that if these values that you show in an asset allocation report are live, as opposed to needing for someone to manually update it from several different places, a live report is always going to have infinitely more value because then you can test what-if scenarios. Because I feel like wealth advisory is an ongoing interaction. It's not a transaction where tell me what you want to throw your report, and if you want something else, we'll throw it over the fence and we'll be back in 60 days. That just doesn't feel like a human interaction.
Right. And there are some insurance contracts that are based on, variable portfolios. Mm-hmm. And so having those updated in real time is important.
Kind of have to.
Yeah. So I think you're right.
And it's mostly not updated real time.
No. And any way that we can make this easier for the advisor, less onerous for the advisor, create a comfort level will help solve both the processing part of this, but also help the explanation end of this with consumers. And also, I challenge in the people in the readers, if you will, of my paper to say, what are the technology solutions? What are the AI solutions that we can build that will help customers talk to advisors about life insurance and advisors talk to customers about life insurance in a very easy and natural way? And I think that's an area of exploration that I'm hoping companies, technology-based companies like yours, will think about and say, you know what? Is there a way that we can help make that connection? You know, can't exactly quote the old adage, but it's the first step of a journey. You know, if you don't take the first step, you can't get to the top of the mountain. Right. Well, many customers, they struggle with three fundamental questions. How much do I need? How much insurance do I need? What type of insurance do I need? And how much is it going to cost? Yeah. Consumers have been struggling with that question. I mean, I used to reference
and there is not a real-time answer as of today.
No.
How much do you need? A lot more than you ever thought or planned. How much is it going to cost? Ironically, a lot less than you thought. Most people think it's so much more expensive than it really is.
Absolutely. Limmer Statistics will validate that every time, year in, year out.
And it's like, how do you get that information into the consumer? Because you don't have enough insurance. None of us really do. And it costs a lot less than you think to add more.
Take that up to the next notch. Look, we've got tons of information, tons and tons of information that you can search out. And you name the source, and you can type it into your computer, and boom, it pops up, right? What we don't have is a way to have someone integrate all the information they can read. Why can't we do that with AI? Why can't we facilitate a relationship with consumers, at least to move them down the track of education and help them answer the fundamental questions that they may want to ask when they first get to when they get to a meeting with an advisor to get a foundation.
I've got really good news for you.
Can you do that?
I see a second paper. I see the agent of the future. I see you talking about, the first paper that you put together, and where can you pick that up and talk about where the agents come from in the future. What type of agent will my kids work with?
Great idea.
How will it do it? And it's what a great progression to what you've already done.
So I need the support of some really smart technology people. You know anybody you could recommend?
Yeah.
And it's not a bad. It's a matter of fact, it's a great idea.
Yeah. I know one that works on weekends.
Yeah, right.
It is a great idea.
But it really is. I mean, your paper talked about the agents of the past and where they are today. But really, the concept is, it's not the agent that I'm going to buy a policy from. It's going to be, my kids are in college. How are they going to buy life insurance? How are they going to work with a financial planner? It'd be really interesting to think that through.
Right. And
So we mentioned AI-powered agents, and this is an interesting conversation because there's kind of two camps about AI right now. One camp believes AI will take over the world and eliminate most, if not at least half of all human jobs. The other camp, the camp I'm in, believes AI will either assist people and enhance their jobs or reskill people so that they can do something more meaningful and more effective.
Yeah.
I'm in your camp.
Right.
Do you feel like insurance agents are really at risk of losing their jobs simply because of AI, or that's not really what's really going to happen?
No, I don't think that. I think that life insurance agents, the life insurance sale is at jeopardy if more and more financial advisors and life insurance agents don't ask consumers about life insurance, because those advisors will go on to sell lots of wealth management products, but not the life insurance products. Right. I think the bigger risk is, look, you guys are in the business of processing applications, for example, right? Your e-application process technology is being supported. You support a huge number of companies now, right? The key is you got to get the applications that come in before you can start processing. So what happens when the application numbers drop?
Because these application numbers are competing with other financial products.
Exactly.
So that is a much bigger threat to the industry than, say, the simple advent of AI.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what about an AI-powered consumer around life insurance? So I want to flip it on the head. I'm saying, is that right?
Dig deeper there. That's interesting.
So I would like to be able to empower what we know is happening today. Consumers are researching insurance questions all the time. They tell Limmer studies will prove that in and out every time.
Yeah.
And so if that's true, does the technology in place today allow that consumer during that investigation to really get into the mode that they want to get into, which is I need help and advice? If you talk with an insurance advisor or financial advisor, my guess is that they will say to you, especially an experienced one, when I talk to someone about life insurance today versus 10 years ago, today's client is much more informed about life insurance.
Well, I think it's because today's consumer has grown up in a very different way where, like you said, when they want help and advice on anything, they're still going to go talk to a human, right, an advisor, but to supplement or before, during, or after that, they're also going to go to Google.
Right.
They're going to educate before they get advice.
Yeah. So they're informed, but they still want help.
Yeah.
10 years ago, they were less
validation.
informed, but they still want help.
But they want validation. They're informed and they're educated from sources, but they want to validate it's correct.
That's correct. And the advisor's role today is to help support what a consumer thinks they know, help to clarify what they think they know that isn't quite right, right? And together build a plan that is right.
I think it mirrors the evolving relationship between doctors and patients. Like 50 years ago, patients are likely just going to a doctor's office and the doctor will tell you have this, and they're not likely to challenge that if you go to your local doctors. But nowadays, it's very, very commonplace for a patient to go into a doctor's office and say, I think I have X because I looked this up and it matches. And the doctor says, no, you don't. You have Y.
So I'll give you a real live example. Having some problems with my back. I go to literally this morning, I went to get an MRI at 6 o'clock this morning. 1 o'clock
and
this
he still
afternoon.
does our podcast.
Right.
That's a trooper.
And 1 o'clock he goes see the doctor. And he pulls up the preliminary report and he goes through it with me line by line. And he's reading me what the technology is telling him.
Yeah.
He said, I understand that. I think this might quite be right. You know what I want to do? Before I give you any kind of an affirmed diagnosis, I'm going to talk to the radiologist. I'll call you either later today or tomorrow. That's advisory. He's using the technology that he got from he didn't show me literally the images today. He showed me the report, but he's got the images. And he's going through the report with me as a fact base to reassure me about some things that we were both concerned about that weren't an issue, but other things he wasn't quite sure about.
Leveraging the resources.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm informed. I feel good about what he's doing. He has to feel good that he had a good relationship with his patient this morning. Very helpful. And why can't we mirror that kind of an example in a relationship with financial products and financial consumers?
And I feel like the way doctors give advice has really, really evolved.
Tremendously.
It used to be where, so my family came from a smaller city, so they didn't have access always to bigger hospitals and all the technology, and this was like before the internet. It used to be where the doctor would just say, based on my assessment, you have this, and there would be no way to check that.
Right.
And it would still be considered advice, but like that didn't feel as comfortable as what doctors, like you just said, do today.
The whole collaborative approach.
The question is, though, did it feel as comfortable? Because back then it might have. I agree with you. The first piece of what you said is exactly the relationship that advisors should be having with their clients every day.
That's
right?
so worksite and group in general is actually the fastest growing sector of headless technology. Because if you think about it, when we buy as a group, we're not each literally talking to advisor one-on-one. We are now buying as a group of employees.
But there's some level of recommendation in there.
There's some level of recommendation, but if I'm buying through a group, I might be buying through a system that has literally nothing to do with insurance per se,
Right.
like a payroll system,
Right.
as enterprise ERP, my company's HR system, none of which like jumps out and says this is an insurance system, right? At least not for me. And I think for a lot of people, it's just like it would people
But
just
if
say
you
this
look
is payroll.
behind them, they're probably some of the biggest insurance agents and distribution partners.
Exactly. So I think, like you mentioned, worksite, group benefits, this is a lot of use cases where a headless technology could let people have better access to information, choices, and evaluate like, do I want this or do I not want this? What are my options? And people can kind of do that with certain parts of health, dental, and vision today. Not nearly as much with life, and certainly not in other parts of life company issued products.
I'd love to see you play that out more because
And like literally never having to go to carrier1.com.
right, and
Complete
also
one application that's really not even an application. It's
Maybe
just,
no application. You're just
putting
on your
data in.
HR and payroll system.
Right, and you've got all the data in there, and then you can apply for multiple products from that one.
right, and do it in a way that can recommend
Right.
based on family situation, and also pretty sure there's research out there that says employees implicitly trust the benefits and services that are being offered by the employer because the employer has, in theory, vetted the product. And so, therefore, they have a higher trust value.
And that you are getting a group benefits rate.
Right. Give me a client that has a high trust value. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So work on that because the industry needs it for growth.
That is the perfect use case where there's a high trust value. The relationship is pre-established, so we're not going there and trying to acquire a new user. You just need to make the experience frictionless.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you because I think this is often at the heart of where the technology intersection and the corporate executive decision-making intersection sometimes don't meet, and that is how do we train traditional life insurance business executives in a way that they can understand the value of what technologies like your organization is building to really make a powerful change. I work with clients around change, and I work with individuals. I have a professional coaching part of my business, and getting the business executives to understand not only the opportunity costs and the value proposition that new technologies can bring, but taking the risk.
I have my thesis around that, and I love your thoughts. My thesis around that is the industry has not really been proficient at quantifying the benefits of some of these very, very new technologies. I think people sort of subconsciously know, yeah, I think that's a good thing, but people, because budget comes from ROI, right?
Right.
You can't really have a major budget line item without quantifiable ROI. And I think something new like a headless technology, it takes time to quantify that. But let's just use that fast food example. If I'm a fast food business exec, I'm not even in tech, engineering, or IT.
How do you convince the carrier or the business? And,
sorry.
It's the
No,
whole,
it's true.
It's the buy, not build. And so many IT leadership companies, IT carriers with IT leadership want to build. And there's great value in building a lot of things on your own, but there's also great value in partnering with vendors and buying and building and collaborating.
Maybe it is much easier to adopt new technology when they realize we're an insurance company. We're really, really good at manufacturing and distributing insurance products, and maybe we don't need to build out literally everything. We need to build some things that is in our core competency, but maybe there are other things, just like delivery networks for McDonald's, that McDonald's maybe should not build out.
Right.
Yeah.
For the record, McDonald's probably can build out the delivery network if they wanted to. I have high doubts that would make financial sense.
Hungry.
Let me bring that back to insurance, because more and more life insurance companies are disassociating themselves with affiliated life insurance distribution, and they're relying on independence. And so now we have a situation where the carrier is designing certain life products to fit the needs of a particular consumer set that will also match to various distributors that they have relationships to. So the carrier's got to find distributors that want to sell products that they manufacture, and then the distributor has clients that want to buy those products, right? Or agents that want to sell those products, right? That's not unsimilar to what you're talking about here.
In that
right?
sense, manufacturers are manufacturers of goods and services, which is
Carriers are the product.
McDonald's would be that manufacturer,
Yeah.
and Uber Eats would be a distributor.
Right.
Uber Eats would essentially be like an IMO.
Yeah. The question is, what are we going to do when most life insurance carriers are product manufacturers,
Right.
and not traditional distributors? And what's the impact on the life insurance sale and all levels of the relationship when you start thinking about the relationships that carriers need to have with independent marketing organizations, independent life brokerage agencies, banks, wirehouses,
Distribution.
independent distribution, independent broker dealers, RIAs.
Yeah.
What's the game plan of those carriers to find market down here?
So I'm going to give you a super biased and self-serving answer because it is what we do. Full disclosure, that's what we do. But I think you
Commercial
need...
coming.
Yes, now. I think you need what is truly reusable technology. Because for the longest time, I think people have adopted like technology A for distributor A, technology B for IMOs, technology C for BDs and wirehouses, right? And for a while that worked. But if you want to really expand independent distribution, there are so many different sets of distributors, everyone different sets of consumers. It's got to work. Just like airlines. Airlines used to, like, American Airlines used to not need to do anything other than like make sure AA.com works.
Right.
And then they needed to make sure not only does AA.com work, it also worked for Expedia. And then it also works for Kayak. And then it expanded where it wasn't just AA.com plus travel sites. It was also Google. Because now you don't actually have to go to a travel site. You could just do a Google search and it'll show you the prices without ever going to a travel site or an airline website.
Regardless of how you buy.
And what these airline companies have done is they've made sure their technology stack is reusable and transferable, regardless of which travel site or search engine you are. Have they made their technology in a way where it only works for XYZtravel.com and would not be reusable for someone else? They would be a disaster.
They're not on the shelf for sale.
Can you imagine being a major airline carrier today and be on no travel site and no search engine?
All right, my last question, and then Nelson may have one or two. What's new and what's going on for you at Clearview Partners? What are you working on that you want to share with us?
A couple of things. I do a lot of work with a company called Spinnaker Analytics, which is a data analytics firm in the industry, and we do great work for companies heavily around distribution and distribution strategy. Where I get my pleasure, frankly, is I have the ability to bring people in as I gain assignments. So part of my goal is to find a certain number of assignments a year that I can bring teams together and have the teams work on projects at the corporate level. But also my growing professional coaching business. I think I get great satisfaction out of working with young professionals that want professional coaches and often referred by their bosses to say, hey, can you work with Jane or George or Susie? Right. Because today I think there's so much technical advice out there, but there's not enough wisdom out there.
That's very true.
Right? And so my ability to help younger emerging executives develop and grow from that side of the business and helping them mature from that side of the business will impact their future in unlimited ways. So I love doing that. I just really do love doing that.
Awesome.
So it's been a great pleasure to be with you guys.
Yeah.
And again, I just want to congratulate you not only for the work that you're doing through your company and what a great organization you have and such a wonderful board of directors and guiding you through your journey, but helping the insurance industry transform in a meaningful and constructive way. And you know what? You're going to look back as the years go by and say, you made an impact, you made a difference.
That's amazing. That's a great compliment. Thank
So
you.
I keep that in mind because it's hard. It's easy to forget why you're doing this stuff, but you're doing this stuff because we're in a noble business.
That's awesome.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a great afternoon here at iLife, and just want to say our team is doing great things for the industry, and we want you to keep coming back. Stay tuned for great announcements in the future. We have some exciting work ahead of us, and who knows where we're going next.
Matt,
It's a deal.
Thank you so much, Jim.
Thanks, guys.
appreciate it.